So now I come to Sheila Remes from Boeing. So we are very pleased to have you in this panel and to have a representative of United States. So I have a question regarding the pace to decarbonize aviation in the United States. Which is this pace as resolute as the one you can perceive in Europe, where this last month it has received momentum and support. So what are the objectives and milestones of Boeing regarding greener aircraft, if any? But
Great, thank you, Bruno. I'll start with where is the U.S. right now, and I think a couple things. Obviously, there's been a lot of change and a different focus from the U.S. administration with the Biden administration rejoining Paris Accord, and so that's really important for all of us. But also, it really sets the tone for where the U.S. is focused, and certainly in the last 2 months, we've joined the Paris Accord as a country, and there's already been a number of airlines in the U.S. that have made commitments and movements in this regard, as well as a meeting with the White House. So I think in the U.S. we're probably not in the same exact place as where Europe is, but I think we're fast followers in terms of a country moving as climate being a focus for us. So really important progress, in my opinion, in that area, because I think it gives us momentum to make change and have kind of the power of the incentives that have been mentioned here before behind us, because it's going to take a lot of, private, public partnerships, if you will, to move this forward. In terms of where Boeing is, a lot has already been said that's very similar to what I will say, but as an industry, it's just in our DNA and our interest to make sure that we make airplanes that are a lot more economical for our airline customers, as well as affordable for travelers. And then by doing so, we innately improve the environment. So you have, as noted, the number one opportunity is really the fleet renewal, taking advantage of already efficient airplanes that are being produced today. And that's what the airlines are doing. So that one is underway, and that's definitely part of the roadmap. The operational efficiency also has been mentioned. That's another 10 to 15% potential for helping airlines operate more efficiently. And then SAF. And finally, as you noted, the future technologies. There's a lot of work that continues to need to be done, and there's been a lot already accomplished. So if you were to look at a flight that you took 30 years ago and take that same flight today, we've reduced emissions on that exact flight by 50% as a passenger. So much more to be done, but we've already started and kind of demonstrated that this is how we move as an industry. Is innovation is really important. I want to say that, transitioning to the renewable, there's no single solution out there. So the transition to the renewable fuels the grid has to transition. So we talked a little bit about, sustainable fuels being critical. That's absolutely where we put our bets on this, because we need to do something now. So as much as you can change your fleets, and I think Paul mentioned that you can drop into existing fleets as well as new fleets and make a big difference. So the problem there is the scale. But the airplanes that will continue to need liquid fuel for decades to come are those that are flying greater than 800 nautical miles, which is where the bulk of the emissions come from. So that in and of itself really relays why it's so important for us as an industry to pull the coalitions together to make sure that we can scale SAF. What are we doing in the other technologies? We've done a number of technology demonstrations associated with hydrogen. 4 flights that we've done with hydrogen over the last decade in terms of learning about fuel cells, learning about liquid fuel application, a number of different approaches to how you get to a green hydrogen and what that might mean, as well as infrastructure. So it's something that we've continued to work on. We've also invested in a number of electric airplane solutions, trying to understand what that gets to as well. But I think one of the biggest challenges for some of the new technology is, one, it's a relatively small part of the market from an emission standpoint, but two, there is an infrastructure transition that needs to happen. And so kind of making sure that that is something that can occur is really important. And then finally, what I want to kind of, close on is the amount of collaboration that needs to happen to really do something today, which is where all of the focus has been, is around SAF. So the lack of renewable energy alternatives that are available to flying, in contrast to other forms of transportation, as an industry, we believe sustainable fuels should have a strong allocation to aviation. So making sure that those renewable fuels are applied to this form of transportation is really critical. And as Paul noted, it's great to start to see some of the larger oil companies make that pivot as well. We're continuing to collaborate across the industry on this with IATA, Air Transport Action Group, World Economic Forum, with the Clean Skies for Tomorrow Coalition. All of those are important to really making sure that we can come up with policy changes that are smart and enable this to be an affordable transition, because that too is critical, so that we can all continue to afford to fly on a carbon-free future. So with that, I'll close and turn it over to you, Bruno. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this overview.